Before you were told who to be, you already were. Before you were shaped by expectations, you were whole. And if you feel like something's missing in you, it's only because you were convinced it was. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here tonight not to talk about what you need to become, not to inspire you to chase, achieve, or fix. We are here to remember something you may have forgotten, not because it wasn't true, but because the world taught you to ignore it. From the moment you were born, you were not a flaw to be fixed or a challenge to overcome. Society, with all its rules and expectations, often paints a picture of you as something that needs repairing, as though your value depends on some future state of perfection. This notion is a trap that convinces you that you must endlessly change, adapt, and improve, when in truth you are already whole. The idea that you are a problem needing a solution implies that there is a deficiency to be mended, a void within you that must be filled. But the truth is that you possess inherent value, intrinsic qualities, and a complete essence that does not require validation or transformation. Imagine a life where you are liberated from the internalized belief that you're broken. A life where every quirk, every perceived imperfection is embraced as a unique facet of your individuality. The relentless pursuit of becoming more, doing more, achieving more, perfecting more often stems from the misconception that something is missing. Each day is spent searching for a sign that affirms your worth, but what if the sign you need is already present within you? You are not a project to be managed or an equation to be solved. You are an existence that flourishes when you accept yourself in the present moment. It is easy to fall into the trap of self-criticism and the endless comparison with others. We measure our value by external standards, often forgetting that every person's journey is different, unique, and complete in its own way. This chase to fix what we think is wrong with ourselves sets us on a perpetual path of dissatisfaction. We become entangled in a cycle of perpetual self-improvement, always chasing an ever elusive version of who we are supposed to be. But liberation begins when you recognize that you are not a malfunction that needs tuning. Instead, you are a being of infinite complexity and beauty, a masterpiece of existence that does not require a touch-up. Every experience, every trial, and even every moment of self-doubt has contributed to the unique tapestry that is you. To see yourself as a problem waiting to be solved is to overlook the intricate blend of joy, resilience, pain, and triumph that has already made you whole. The pressure to constantly evolve into something better steals the simple joy of being, and it robs you of the chance to appreciate the fullness of your present self. Each day offers a moment to witness the beauty of who you are without the burden of having to justify your existence with achievements or perfection. So let go of the internalized narrative that convinces you are lacking. Embrace the truth that you are from the very beginning, complete. Stand firm in your inherent worth and let the understanding that you are not a problem to be solved be the foundation upon which you build a life of authenticity, compassion, and inner peace. There is a quiet lie embedded deep within our culture, one that hides behind noble sounding words like growth, ambition, and potential. It whispers that you are only as worthy as your latest achievement, only as lovable as your newest improvement. This is the trap of endless self-improvement. It promises fulfillment while quietly feeding on your sense of lack. It dresses itself in the language of motivation, but operates from the belief that you, as you are right now, are not enough. We live in a world that thrives on better bodies, better resumes, better minds. The idea of being content, truly content, is often seen as weakness, laziness, or giving up. So we keep chasing, we set goals, measure progress, optimize habits, and pursue an ideal version of ourselves that always seems one step further down the road. And every time we get close, the road moves. The bar shifts, satisfaction is delayed, joy is postponed. The horizon never lets us arrive. The self-help industry, social media, and even well-meaning mentors often reinforce this cycle. They tell us to never settle, to keep pushing, to keep grinding, because somewhere out there is a version of you who finally deserves love, rest, and respect. And if you just work hard enough, you'll become them. But this constant becoming leaves little room for being. It turns life into a competition against yourself, and peace becomes a reward that's always just out of reach. What's often missed in this pursuit is the subtle cruelty of its message that who you are today is not worthy of your own approval, that your love for yourself must be earned through performance, that rest must be justified, that your humanity is a rough draft waiting for polish. This mindset is exhausting. It never lets you exhale. It tells you to hustle through your healing, to glow up through your grief, and to turn every soft, vulnerable part of yourself into a success story. But you are not a project, you are a person. And no amount of self-improvement will ever satisfy if it comes from a place of self-rejection. Real growth is not about striving towards some flawless version of yourself. It's about deepening your understanding of who you already are. It's about unfolding, not overhauling. It's not a desperate climb to worthiness. It's a homecoming. The trap is not in the desire to grow. Growth is natural, beautiful, even necessary. The trap is in the belief that growth is the only thing that makes you valuable. That if you stop striving, you stop mattering. But you were never meant to live life as a constant self-upgrade. You were meant to live it as a fully present, deeply human being, flawed, evolving, and enough. There's a kind of freedom that comes when you choose to grow from love rather than lack. When you improve, not because you hate who you are, but because you already love yourself enough to keep unfolding. That's not a trap, that's liberation. Stillness is often misunderstood in a world obsessed with momentum and noise. Stillness is mistaken for laziness, stagnation, or emptiness. We equate silence with absence and inactivity with weakness. But that's a lie born from a culture that fears pause, because in the quiet, we confront ourselves. The truth is, stillness is not a void. It is not a lack. It is not doing nothing. Stillness is a force, an anchor. It is the space where your real power lies, unshaken by external demands. When you are still, the distractions fall away, the performance drops, the roles fade, and what's left is you, raw, real, and present. Most people run from that. They fill their days with motion to avoid the intimacy of their own presence. But in that avoidance, they give their power away to the job, to the chase, to the applause, because movement without awareness is not progress, it's noise. And sometimes the most radical act in a restless world is to be still. Think of a mountain. It does not move, yet it shapes the sky. The wind bends around it. Storms may come and go, but it remains grounded, unchanged by chaos. That is what stillness offers, not escape, but groundedness, a return to center, the kind of presence that can't be shaken by headlines, deadlines, or opinions. It is not a retreat from life, it is a reclaiming of your inner territory. Stillness is also where clarity lives. In constant motion, your mind becomes a crowded room, too loud to hear your own thoughts. But in the quiet, things begin to settle. Your intuition rises. Your inner voice becomes audible again. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop chasing and start choosing. There is strength in that pause, a strength that doesn't need to shout or rush. It just knows. We have been conditioned to equate power with productivity, to believe that unless we are doing, we are wasting time. But time spent in stillness is not wasted. It's where your real work happens. It's where healing takes root, where perspective sharpens, where intentions become clear, and most of all, it's where you remember that your worth is not measured by your output, your speed, or your schedule. Stillness is not passive. It takes courage to stop moving. It takes discipline to turn inward. And it takes strength to stay present when the world urges you to run. But when you choose stillness, not as avoidance, but as a conscious practice, you become unshakable. You no longer dance to the rhythm of urgency. You move to the quiet beat of your own presence. In that presence, you become more than what you do. You reconnect with who you are. And in that reconnection, you find something stronger than hustle. You find power, quiet, certain, unmistakable. The voice inside your head that tells you you're not good enough didn't start with you. You weren't born with it. You didn't arrive in this world thinking you were lacking or flawed. That voice, the one that picks apart your reflection, questions your worth, and whispers doubts into your dreams, was taught to you. It was passed down, absorbed, conditioned. Somewhere along the way, through the words of others, the comparisons, the silent disapprovals, and the impossible standards, you learn to echo that voice back to yourself. But it isn't yours. It never was. We often accept the inner critic as truth because it sounds so familiar, so convincing. It speaks in your voice, after all. It knows your fears, your insecurities, your history. But familiarity doesn't make something true. What we call self-criticism is often the internalized judgment of parents, teachers, peers, culture, or media. It's the sum of years spent being measured, corrected, and molded to fit into boxes that were never meant to hold the fullness of who you are. Maybe someone once told you that you were too loud, too quiet, too emotional, not enough of this, too much of that. Maybe you were praised only when you achieved, not simply when you existed. Maybe love felt conditional, tied to performance or perfection. Slowly, the message took root. Who you are isn't acceptable unless you edit, improve, or hide parts of yourself. And now, even when those people are long gone, their voices remain disguised as your own. That inner critic thrives on repetition. It plays the same old lines over and over, hoping you'll forget they're just echoes. And the more you believe them, the more power they hold. But the moment you begin to question them, to observe without identifying, the spell starts to break. You start to realize that you are not the voice, you are the one hearing it. And that distinction changes everything. There is nothing natural about being at war with yourself. There is nothing noble about tearing yourself down in the name of humility or realism. Self-criticism doesn't make you stronger, it makes you smaller. It keeps you doubting instead of doing, hiding instead of healing. And worst of all, it keeps you distant from yourself. What if instead of believing every harsh thought that arises, you became curious about it? What if you asked, whose voice is this, really? What if you stopped treating every internal judgment as a verdict and started seeing it as a wound speaking? You don't silence the inner critic by shouting it down. You unlearn it. You replace it with truth, slowly and gently, like rewiring a damaged circuit. You did not choose that voice. But now you get to choose what you do with it. You get to reclaim your mind, your worth, your inner world. Because the critic was inherited, but the voice of compassion, of truth, of wholeness, that one is yours to grow. Perfection is a moving target, an illusion dressed up as a destination. It tells you that if you just try hard enough, fix enough, polish enough, you'll finally be worthy, finally be accepted, finally feel peace. But perfection never arrives. It just keeps shifting the goalposts. Authenticity, on the other hand, is not a destination. It is a return to yourself. It's the unfiltered, unperformed truth of who you are, without the mask, without the edits, without the fear of being seen. And in a world that rewards performance, choosing authenticity is an act of quiet rebellion. We are taught from a young age to strive, to perfect, to please. We learn to shape ourselves according to what others expect, applauding ourselves when we manage to hide the mess, the flaws, the softness. But every time we do that, a small part of us goes quiet. We silence what is real in favor of what is acceptable. And over time, the pressure to be perfect doesn't just weigh on our actions, it starts to weigh on our identity. We forget who we are beneath the performance. Perfection says, hide your cracks. Authenticity says, let the light through them. And that's where the real connection happens, not in the polished image, but in the honest one. People don't fall in love with your perfection. They resonate with your truth, your laughter that isn't rehearsed, your courage to say, I don't know, your willingness to show up exactly as you are, raw, real, unfinished. That is what makes you magnetic. That is what makes you free. Authenticity requires courage. It means risking rejection. It means standing in front of the world without your armor, knowing that not everyone will understand you, but trusting that the right people will. And even more importantly, trusting yourself enough to stand alone if they don't. Because being true to yourself is not about pleasing others, it's about not abandoning yourself in the process. Perfection is fragile. It shatters under pressure. It demands constant upkeep and sacrifices joy on the altar of control. But authenticity is durable. It bends. It breathes. It allows you to grow without losing yourself. When you let go of the need to appear flawless, you create space for mistakes, for growth, for ladder, for rest. You no longer need to earn your own love or the right to take up space. You already have it. So much of the suffering we carry comes from trying to be someone we're not, or from hiding parts of ourselves we were told were too much, too weird, too different. But every time you choose authenticity over perfection, you reclaim a piece of your voice. You stitch yourself back together, not into something sheenier, but into something more you. The goal was never to be perfect. It was to be whole, and wholeness lives in truth, not performance. We grow up believing freedom is somewhere out there, a place, a moment, a status. We're told that once we achieve a certain level of success, earn enough, look the part, or find the right relationship, we'll finally feel free. The world sells freedom as something external, a prize waiting at the end of effort, sacrifice, or approval. But that kind of freedom is conditional, fragile, and fleeting. The truth is far simpler and far more powerful. Real freedom isn't something you chase, it's something you uncover. It lives inside you. Freedom isn't about changing your circumstances, it's about changing your relationship to them. It's the ability to stand in the middle of your life with all its imperfections and uncertainty and still feel at peace. It's the ability to choose your response, your values, your presence, no matter what the world throws at you. It's not about escaping pressure or pain. It's about no longer being ruled by it. External freedom can be taken away. Internal freedom cannot. That's why the most powerful kind of liberation begins not when the world shifts, but when you do. We often think we need to earn our way to peace, that we must tick off the right boxes to finally deserve rest, love, or self-acceptance. But what if freedom doesn't come from reaching those milestones? What if it comes from realizing you never had to chase them to begin with? That who you are right now in this moment is already enough, that you don't need to prove, perform, or perfect yourself to be worthy of your own presence. This inner freedom starts with letting go of control, of comparison, of the need to constantly justify your existence. It's a quiet, steady remembering that you are not defined by your mistakes, your titles, your bank account, or your reputation. You are not the roles you play. You are not the mask you wear. You are the witness behind it all. And the moment you realize that, the weight begins to lift. The panic starts to quiet. The pressure to always be more loses its grip. True freedom is choosing yourself when the world asks you to be someone else. It's honoring your boundaries, your truth, your intuition. It's knowing that you can be still in a world that demands movement, that you can be soft in a world that rewards hardness, that you can live slow and deep while the world spins fast and shallow. Freedom isn't loud. It doesn't need to be declared. It's a quiet certainty, an inner steadiness, a trust in yourself that can't be shaken by outcomes. You can have everything and still feel trapped, or you can have very little and feel unshakably free. That's how you know it was never about the world. It was always about what you believe, what you carry, and what you choose to release. The gates to your freedom were never locked. You just had to look in the right direction within. So here is the truth. Freedom, wholeness, power, and peace are not things to chase. They are realities you return to when you stop believing the lies. You are not a problem to be solved. You are not broken. You don't need to earn your worth through perfection or bury your truth beneath performance. The world may reward noise, speed, north, and control, but your liberation lies in stillness, in presence, in authenticity. The inner critic that haunts you is an echo, not a truth. The pressure to endlessly improve is a trap, not a path. And the version of you that dares to be fully, unapologetically present, that version has always been enough. You are already complete. Not because you've done everything right, but because you are here, aware, alive, human. The work, if there is any, is not to become someone else, but to remember who you were before the world told you otherwise. That remembrance is liberation. That presence is power. And that truth, when fully embraced, is where your freedom truly begins.